You're tuning in to the Black Hollywood Live Network, featuring news, interviews, and commentary on all things Black Hollywood. Hollywood redefined. From Los Angeles, California, presented by Maria Menounos and streaming live thanks to Akamai Technologies. This is Black Hollywood Live. Justice is served. Featuring the week's roundup and commentary on legal news. Black Hollywood Live. Hollywood redefined.
You're listening to Black Hollywood Live.
And now, the host for Black Hollywood Live, Justice is Served.
Hello, everyone. I'm Sara Azari. Welcome to Justice is Served. I'm a criminal defense attorney and legal analyst, as well as your host here today. And I'm joined by my lovely co-host, Chelsea Galicia, also an attorney. Chelsea, it's great to be back.
Thank you.
Doing this segment with you. I feel like I've been gone forever, since the holidays and then a vacation and a trial. And it's nice to be doing this segment, which is all about very big names in big legal trouble in Hollywood. And we have a very, very special guest with us here today in the studio, Anthony Brooklier. Welcome to Justice is Served.
Good to be here. Thank you.
And I'm going to call him Tony just because, I've known him since 2002. But Tony is an attorney with over 43 years of experience as a criminal defense attorney, and he has successfully tried over 300 jury trials, both in Los Angeles and across the nation in state and federal courts. He is, I admire him not just because he's a brilliant lawyer, but he's humble about it. When sometimes I get a call and we're discussing cases and he's just completed a trial and I ask him, how did it go? He's having 5 different conversations, but he just humbly says, oh, not guilty, and, goes off to talking about the best Italian restaurant in town. So, I just love that about you, and it's an honor to have you. I've been mentored by you, and it's great to have you on the show. So let's get started with our case of the week, which is about Suge Knight. He is being held on no bail on 4 very serious felony counts. One, the murder of his friend Terry Carter. The second being the attempted murder of another big name in hip-hop, Claiborne Sloan, as well as 2 felony hit-and-run counts, one having to do with each of these men. He essentially turned himself into the West Hollywood Sheriff's Department last Friday with his then attorney, Jim Blatt, who Tony and I both have worked with and know very well. And Suge Knight at the time was held on $2 million bail, and since then, on Monday, he was arraigned in Los Angeles Superior Court, and the bail was lifted, and he has no bail. So before we get into the incident that led to these charges and Suge's arrest, let's take a quick look at the clip of his surrender on Friday.
Yo, Suge, what was the fight about, man? Can you say anything about the allegations against you?
So, when I saw this, I thought he's cool as a cucumber, puffing on a cigar. And these are some very serious charges. If you didn't know, you would think he's there to sign a record deal or something, But nonetheless, this issue of him being held on no bail is my first question to you, Tony. He's charged with, one of these charges is a murder, right? And so my question is obviously he has a very long rap sheet. We're going to get into that in a minute. But does the no bail have to do with the fact that he's got this rap sheet and he might be a flight risk, or because of the nature of the charges, and one being murder?
Well, I think it's all of the above. No bail is very unusual. You only usually see it in capital cases, and this isn't a capital case. This is not a death penalty case. I think he's got this big name, et cetera, and the prosecution successfully argued that he's a flight risk, and at least for the moment, he's being held with no bail. I talked to his new attorney, David Kinner, somebody I've known for 30 years plus, today. In fact, just a few minutes ago.
So he's no longer represented by James Blatt.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Probably a good call. Sorry, I just think he said 3 really amusing things that turned out to not work out.
We're going to get to that when we talk about the incident.
Well, I'm here to defend James Blatt because so we'll go at it. But But getting back to the question, I think that's it. Now there's a bail review set next week. I believe it's set Monday.
So this might change.
I think it might change.
I don't think it will.
Well, let's talk about the incident because I think it's important for the viewers who may not have followed to know what led up to this. So last Thursday, Suge shows up to the set of a hip hop movie that a lot of big names were there. Dr. Dre was there in Compton, and Suge is actually a native of Compton. So was his friend who unfortunately was hit and killed in this accident, Terry Carter, and he
Accident.
I believe
Remains
it was an accident.
to be seen. Okay.
Whether it's intentional or not, it was an accident that killed the guy. So he shows up to the set of this movie and gets into an argument with Sloan, and the deputy sheriffs who are manning the set tell him to take it out. He's then seen in the parking lot of Tam's Burgers in Compton, where witnesses have told the sheriff's department punches were exchanged between Suge and Sloan through his pickup truck window. And he then, this is according to the witnesses, he then hits the two men, being Carter and Sloan, and then guns it again, running over them, and flees the scene. So the theory from law enforcement perspective is that he was angry, that he had an intent to kill Sloan, even though he hit the wrong, or he killed the wrong guy, his own friend. He's still on the hook for murder and attempted murder. And James Blatt, his then attorney at the time of his surrender, made a very detailed statement that saying that this was just an accident, that he was being attacked and he was in mortal fear for his life. And one of several men happened to be Sloan, who was attacking Suge, and so he had to get out of there as soon as he could. So it's essentially self-defense.
He also said that this case would go away by early next week, and that is clearly not happening.
Right.
So.
I have to say, I think in a situation like this, I would be very careful, especially with a big name like this, a high-profile case. I would be very careful to make really any statements so early on. And I'm curious to see how you feel about this, Tony. But, saying things like, oh, the case is going away by such and such date, making promises that you really don't know that you can deliver, and also making statements about a video that you have not seen. I always get nervous. There's a video in this case in the custody of the sheriff's department. According to Tony, his new attorney is going to be viewing it momentarily today. But not knowing what's on there and just going by your client's, expectation of what that video is going to show makes me nervous. How do you feel about that, Tony?
Well, I don't think it's that important, to tell you the truth. What's important is what the video shows.
That's what I mean.
That's what's important. But look, at the time, this is what Blatt knew. Jim Blatt. Contrary to the opinion of the lady next to me, apparently, is a very experienced, successful attorney. And he's going by what Suge Knight told him, and that it was an accident, which I tend to agree with. And I'll tell you why if you want me to.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, first of all, one of the fellows that was killed, Terry Carter, was friends with Suge, as far as I know. I mean, I've heard of Terry Carter since way back in the 80s. What a wonderful man he was. He helped a lot of people who were on the street.
Also had a record label in the hip hop industry, I believe.
But even more than that, he was held in high esteem by the community. He would take kids that had no place to live off the street, help them get off drugs, help them get jobs. A lot of people
called him dad.
A lot of people called him.
So sweet.
Yeah, a lot of people called him dad. And Suge, as far as I know, Suge Knight was friends with him, and so I mean, it's impossible for me to believe that, knowing Suge the way I know him, that he would intentionally run over anybody, because that is not a manly thing to do. I'm not saying Suge Knight is a saint, and he might stand there and punch it out with you face to face, but he's not going to run you over in a car.
And leave.
He's not a.
So then, why did he? Why did he leave?
I think he was trying to get out of there. I think he was being attacked, and I'm not even sure that he knew. Blatt told me that when that Suge broke down when he found out Terry Carter had passed away.
I think his statement was that he wasn't aware right away that he had actually hit
anybody.
How do you run over people twice and not know it? And then show up to turn yourself in smoking a cigar as if somebody had just gotten, run over their toe or something. So it's just, this doesn't really match up.
Well, look, you have to look at the video. And I talked to David Kinner, his new attorney, about a half an hour ago, and David told me he was going to be seeing it in an hour or two. He hasn't seen it either. So
Right. So this could be the smoking gun that corroborates the prosecution's case.
Or doesn't corroborate it, or undermines the
or
prosecution.
undermines it, and actually puts everything, where everything will fall into place in terms of what Jim Blatt said, which is it was an attack and he was protecting himself and he had to get out of there.
If it's his character to fight it out, it doesn't make sense that he would drive off.
Well, I think
Well,
what I was told was he was being attacked by more than one person.
Right, a group of people is what
I know. There
know.
was never 4 people like Blatt said.
Were you there?
That is what.
Apparently you're an eyeball witness.
Well, this
Do you
is
hang
what
out in Compton, Chelsea?
Were you at Tams?
All right, I'm busted.
Cheeseburger.
It was my cheat day, for crying out loud.
Okay.
I've actually had numerous cases in Compton. I don't even know where Tamsburg is, but hey. All right. The other question I had for you, Tony, is Suge, and you might know this because I'm also curious to talk to you about your experience representing him, because I know you've represented him before, but he had been twice, a few years apart, shot. He'd been a victim of shootings, and there were no arrests made. The assailants were never located. And do you think that the fact that he has been attacked before and that he's been a victim in that sort of hip-hop world, do you think that will have any impact in this case, or any weight? That the fact that he had to dodge and leave and protect himself?
I mean, here's a guy that was in the car with Tupac when Tupac was murdered in Las Vegas. Suge's skull was creased with a bullet. He took 6 shots a few months ago.
In August, yeah.
Right. Stood outside, called 911, and waited for the ambulance to come. This is a tough guy. And that's why I say, I just don't think it's in his character to make a punk move like running over somebody intentionally with a car. Suge wouldn't do that.
So you just think
he might jump out of the car and
So why didn't he?
I don't know. Look,
Well,
I think he was just trying to get away. I honestly no, and I haven't seen anything. Only time will tell. We don't have all the facts in front of us. But if you want my opinion, and this is just my opinion based on his character, no way he intended to kill anybody with a car.
He seems to be more confrontational, even in looking at his past.
He'll get in your face, but he's not gonna run you over with a car.
Right. Well, his rap sheet, this new arrest prompted me to look back at his history, and it's rather long and. Rap sheet, no pun intended. He
Nicely done, Sarah.
he had a recent arrest, and I want to talk to you about this as well. In 2014, in the fall, him and Cat Williams, a comedian, were charged with second-degree robbery of camera equipment. And that, to me, sounds like one of those stupid things that someone does, and then they get into, some kind of a struggle, and then it becomes a robbery, where the force element comes in, right? So what is the impact of that open case on this one now?
Well, of course, the fact that he's out on bail in that case makes it a 2-year out on bail enhancement. But
meaning it adds to his time, whatever he's exposed to time, if he's found guilty.
It adds to his exposure. But, that was, I talked to that woman. I talked to the woman whose camera was
allegedly stolen.
Allegedly taken by force. I think this was just a situational thing, a paparazzi situation, if you will, that got out of hand. I think Suge or the comedian had one of them or both of them had their kids with them, and they didn't want their kids filmed. And I think that was a confrontation. I think
is that a defense? Do you think that would work?
No, but I think what it does is puts it in context. As that it wasn't some, it sounds like it was a strong-arm robbery.
It's more protective than aggressive.
And this happens a lot, and I'm sure you get this as well in your practice, where I've had clients come in on a petty theft of a CD or a magazine from a store, and they're charged with robbery. And it's because they walk out of the store and they get into this, struggle with the security officer, and suddenly it's a robbery.
That's called an Estes robbery.
Yeah.
And it's just like you bump somebody,
and suddenly it's force.
All of a sudden you have a strike. You're facing a strike.
And it's really, so when I saw this charge, I thought, He doesn't need camera equipment. I mean, this is one of those, crazy situations. But then going backwards, in 2013, he's arrested on an outstanding warrant and later released. 2009, he's involved in a fight at a hotel in Scottsdale. 2005 was the other time when he was shot. He was a victim, of course, in that case.
Basically, he's got 2 strikes.
He definitely has 2 strikes, and the first one is back in '96. So in 2003, he punches a parking lot attendant outside a Hollywood nightclub, and he's violated his parole on the first conviction. 2002, he's gone to jail for probation violation because he hung out with gang members, and his worst case, aside from the current one, I think, was in 1996 when he was convicted of aggravated assault in Las Vegas and served 5 years. And this had to do with an assault that occurred just hours before Tupac Shakur was shot and killed. So
I'm wondering if, let's say he doesn't get tried for murder or even get convicted of attempted murder, but it's just felony hit and run. Mm-hmm. Is that a 3rd strike sufficient to cause a 3 strikes law?
And that's a great question for Tony. And I think that aside from the 3 strikes that we want to hear from you on, what is the best case scenario for him, and what's the worst in terms of his exposure in this case? What's the best he can walk away with?
Well, the best would be to be acquitted.
Of everything.
Of everything.
Okay, maybe she asked what's reasonably best case. Because do you really think you can get off for everything? One guy is dead, one guy's in the hospital.
If Tony was representing him, he would.
Well, I wouldn't say that. He has he's had very good lawyers in the past, and he's got a very good lawyer now.
I don't know
Kidder's
them. I do know you.
Very good lawyer. Look, anything is possible in this situation. But in answer to one of your questions, is it felony hit and run a strike? No, it's not. They changed the 3 strikes law, wherein now it used to be any felony, and you get banged for 25 to life. Mm-hmm. Now it has to be a strike. It has to be either a
not just a felony, but actually a strike felony.
But there's 2 kinds of strikes: violent and serious. It has to be.
And a felony hit and run is not either one.
I don't believe it is.
It's not considered. Violent and serious offenses are things like rape, aggravated assault, things of that sort. Not
assault with a deadly.
Absolutely.
Or if just a simple assault with intent to commit great bodily injury, and the infliction. Anytime there's an infliction of great bodily injury, that's a strike.
That's a strike. Yeah.
That's a strike.
Mm-hmm. So is that
so if he were convicted of that?
Happened?
Well, I don't know what happened. Look.
It would be great result for him if he walked away with 2 counts of hit and run, which is a violation of the vehicle code. And, his insurance is going to go up. He's going to be on probation.
Sure
he'll be on probation.
I don't think that's what his panic attack yesterday was about. I think he knows that he's probably going to be calling jail home for a while.
Well, I
wouldn't be too sure.
All right.
I wouldn't bet the farm.
Remember when
farm.
Robert Blake, on a murder case, he got out at the preliminary hearing. He got out on bail, which was really shocking to a lot of us.
His attorney, Tom Mesereau, made a brilliant argument. One that, as far as I'm concerned, I was electrified. When I was watching it.
Yeah.
One of the greatest arguments I've ever heard anybody ever make on any case.
Yeah.
He's just fabulous attorney. And then, of course, he went on to successfully represent
Michael Jackson. Yeah. All right. Well, let's turn it over to you, Chelsea, and on the docket.
Okay, great. So we've got another murder trial that we're covering here, this one of Aaron Hernandez, and this is the first of 2 that he will be facing in total. So the last time we covered this, we talked about jury selection, and now the jurors have been picked, although one was kicked off yesterday for apparently being really into this case, had been into this case for a long time, and had actually wanted to be a juror. But somehow they found out about this and kicked her off. Anyways, there's been a couple more interesting things. First, I was really, I'll call it amused. You probably won't share that word.
Sentiment?
Right, that sentiment.
I'm laughing already.
Yeah, by his defense attorney during the opening statement, where he said that the police and prosecution have targeted this NFL star. His attorney made it a point to reference the fact that he's a former New England Patriot, and said that it doesn't make sense that he would kill Odin Lloyd. They were really good friends. So then it, I don't think, looked so good when yesterday the girlfriend of the victim, who also happens to be Hernandez's fiance's sister, takes a stand and says, no, they were acquaintances. They were cool. They hung out over the last 2 years, but they were not friends. And that in the...
Weren't they party friends? They would smoke pot together and
Yes.
hang out. Yeah.
That was my code
That
word,
might be the
acquaintance.
definition of friendship in pothead world, you know.
Well, I don't know. But the other part that doesn't look so great is that the victim's girlfriend was at Hernandez's house in the hours after the murder. When she found out that her boyfriend was killed, she was with her sister, and her sister mysteriously gets up, goes to the basement, gets something, asks to borrow her car, leaves without explanation. Potentially, that's where prosecutors are trying to say the murder weapon went. So, yeah, I think that was really fascinating. The last part that I think is really not helpful to his case is this picture right here that the prosecution has showed of him. This is from security video from his own home, standing in his own, it looks like the foyer of his house, holding what to me looks like to be a gun, but I've heard to some people could be an iPad or an iPhone, unless there's a version of those things that I haven't seen yet. I don't think so.
I've seen lighters shaped like that.
Oh, is that what you tell the jury?
There are things shaped like a gun.
Okay.
But I don't think an iPhone has yet to be created that looks
right.
like a gun.
Okay.
But-
Well, Anthony, what would you do if this was the picture shown in your case?
Well, I've read something of the case. I watch it because it's of interest, But I think it's a strong circumstantial case for the prosecution. What the defense scored a big victory because the issue is motive. That's juries are always interested in motive, and what is the motive here? Well, the motive here, the judge took away from the prosecution.
And it was big.
Yeah, and the motive was that apparently the decedent was aware that Hernandez had killed 2 other people prior to this time.
That's the other case that's
the trial
coming
that's
up.
pending.
And the judge
like
kept that out, which
Right.
was a huge victory, because once a jury heard that, and I think the judge was probably right to do it, it's just too prejudicial versus probative.
Can't the prosecution still say that Aaron didn't like that Odin Lloyd was friends with apparently people he didn't like?
Well,
And
they can say that.
But it's not as big of a motive or as strong of a motive.
He know that I killed other guys.
As this guy knew
I'm
too
afraid
much.
this guy's going to rat me out on these 2 murders.
Because he knows too much.
That's a
And
real
now
motive.
he's afraid that his fiance has made a deal with, because what happened was his fiance, in the grand jury testimony that she gave, she lied and about the fact that they keep guns in the house. She lied about that, and she was caught. So the prosecution wanted to charge her with perjury, and the defense attorneys for Hernandez are concerned that she has made a deal.
Are they married?
Nope.
No, she's the mother of his child.
We have now found one reason to get married.
Yes, absolutely. Maybe the best reason in the world.
Get
Your
married
wife
quickly.
can't testify against
Right.
you. The marital privilege. But you know what I'd be worried about if I was the defense attorney? Apparently, there's 2 other people charged in this too.
Right.
They severed. If I would be worried that one of those 2 other people or their attorney was going to come to the prosecution looking for mercy and say, "Look, I was there. This is what happened." And
So that they could get a better deal.
Sure. It
right.
happens all the time,
And then, and sever meaning that they're going to be tried separately from Hernandez. Well, there's no gun, there's no eyewitnesses, and there's no...
Well, there potentially could be eyewitnesses if one of these 2 other guys come forward.
Yes. But at this time, there are no eyewitnesses, and the real strong motive is gone. It's taken away by the court. But there are 2 intriguing pieces of information that have come up. One is that there is a joint found near Lloyd's body, and it has it has Hernandez's DNA, and then there is a shell
And the decedent's DNA.
and the decedent's DNA, and then there's a shell casing found in Hernandez's rental car, which also carries the DNA. So those are some, additional piece of evidence at the time.
This picture over here that Chelsea.
Yeah, the picture's not good
The
because
picture's not good.
because it looks like a gun, and now you have to explain that even though it
lighter?
looks like a gun, it's something else.
What are you lighting with something that size?
The fireplace.
No. At like it was 6 a.m. when he came home. His surveillance cameras show that he came home at like 5:30 in the morning. Is that something you do at 6 a.m?
Yeah,
I
but
don't know.
the surveillance video is not good because it shows them. It shows Hernandez and the two other, I'll call them co-defendants, even though they're not in the same trial. Going at like 3 a.m. and picking up Lloyd and taking him to a very remote industrial park. And then one of the guys stays in the car, but Wallace and Hernandez are seen walking out with Lloyd. And then they come back to the car, but Lloyd doesn't.
Yeah.
Right.
Well,
And
that's why I
that's-
say circumstantial case. And, circumstantial evidence can be devastatingly stronger
Than direct.
because you don't have to depend on witnesses.
Right.
These are things that happen, and when you put them all together, either this guy's guilty or he's the unluckiest person that ever walked the face of the earth.
Right.
I'm
For all
thinking it's the former.
For all these things to have happened.
Yeah.
Tough case. I think it's a tough case.
Well, I think the inevitable defense here is going to be pointing the finger to Wallace, the other guy that was actually walked out of the car and went to this location and then came back. I'm guessing this is going to be the defense for Hernandez is that,
After the shoddy police thing doesn't work out for them.
Right. Well, that's always we try to say that. That's sort of the
we
default
don't.
argument.
That's not true. That isn't true. But in a case like this, if you're going to bring that up,
Yeah.
as a defense attorney, I think you have to do more than just rely on the concept of reasonable doubt. When you
Right.
make a statement like that, you have to have third-party liability. He better be able to say, fill in the blank, and here's the blank.
Mm-hmm.
My client is not guilty
Because
He was helping puppies at the shelter. I don't think that there's going to be any blank filled in by his
Well,
attorney.
you might be right, but I think that's
what
the
needs to
death knell
happen.
for
I was
the
listening for it
defense.
on the opening statements, and that's nothing close to what came out of their mouths.
He's going to
Right.
harp on. The defense attorney's going to harp on. He had everything going for him.
Right. He had a contract, $40 million contract. He had
beautiful
a
fiance,
baby. Yeah.
baby. But
But
But he
sometimes
was disrespected, and that matters
But
more
I mean,
than
don't
everything.
you think he's going to
Really.
say, "Look, Wallace, this flunky from Bristol, Connecticut, who's depended on me for support and for visibility or whatever. He just decided to take this .45 Glock to this guy who happened to be my acquaintance or friend or whatever, and I had nothing to do with
then
it."
you know what? Then Hernandez has to get up and say
testify.
that. He's got to testify.
What are the chances he's going to get up there?
You know what? I'll tell you. If I were the defense attorney and I faced this circumstantial evidence, I would really consider putting my client on the stand. I really would. And I really think that this concept that I put my client on the stand when I think it's appropriate, a lot more than I think a lot of other attorneys do. People,
Right.
I don't care what jurors say. Most of the time, I've won cases. I won a lot of cases without putting my client on the stand. But jurors basically want to hear. They want to hear, no matter what they say, they want to hear from your client.
Right. I think it's just we're so afraid of the cross-examination of our clients.
Well, that's a different thing.
Right.
But look, if you're here's what I'm saying. Here's how jurors. This is what they're going to think.
If
in
the
this
only
case.
way you can get the evidence in is
You're
through his
on
testimony.
trial for murder.
Right.
You're saying you're not guilty. This was your fiance's sister's boyfriend. Get up and tell that jury, and in this case more than others, I think he has to testify. And I would be surprised if he didn't.
Yeah. We'll, of course, update you in the upcoming weeks as this trial will probably go on for a while.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, this next one. Do you guys remember back in 2000 that song about "Let's Get Married, Meet Me at the Altar in Your White Dress"? I know it was your favorite song.
It was
wasn't
my favorite song.
Yeah, can you imagine? It came out in 2000, so that there are teenagers right now who weren't even born when that song came out. You guys missed out. Okay, anyway, so one of the guys from that group, Kyle Norman, was recently arrested for aggravated assault. The ironic part of this case is that while he was allegedly beating her up, he was shoving the engagement ring down her throat.
The one she had on from him. Basically.
Yes. So the details are pretty brutal, but what I found made him endearing at least slightly was when police caught up to him, he said, "I need to go to jail." So do you guys think that that's going to help or harm his ability to get a deal?
Well, I don't think it's going to help his case.
Right.
You know,
I think people are really honest when they're drunk.
was he intoxicated?
Yeah. I think the argument started because of his alcohol consumption. And I think...
Well, he said he was upset that his father had been diagnosed with cancer.
But her version was that she was basically telling him, look, you got to stop drinking and that kind of thing. And I think, this whole ring business is rather unique, but I've had commonly their domestic violence cases involve alcohol. And what I do is, and I think Tony does the same thing, is I ask the clients to immediately start attending AA meetings. If it's very serious, if the crime is, if the charge is, let's say, a felony or whatnot, I might even ask them to go into residential treatment. I think it looks really good in terms of mitigation. That, if you're going to say as a defense attorney, had my client not been drunk, he would have never done this, then the best evidence of that is your client trying to fix that problem. But yeah, I need to go to jail is not the brightest thing.
Did she take him back, by the way? Are they together?
I hope I know. I
hope we find out engagement ring.
Oh, God. I don't know.
This time
I hope
she
that
was
we
probably
find out
saying,
soon.
"Get me a small one. You're going to shove it down my throat." And I have to,
oh my
you know
gosh.
what I'm saying, right?
Yeah. But when you have a chance, you have to watch the video. Did you end up watching it?
No.
There's a video of him trying to shove the ring?
No. The video of the song.
Oh, okay.
Back from 2000. Yeah, it's pretty epic. You've got to, you have to see it. Watch it later, after the show's over. Not yet. Okay, because we still got a couple things to talk about, including Mr. George Zimmerman. Did he get away with it again? It looks like it. The most recent girlfriend or quasi-girlfriend or whatever that he was arrested for assaulting has recanted. And
is this the one with the wine bottle?
Yep, that's her. And so this is the third woman in a row to change her mind about pursuing charges against him. And so since she recanted, prosecutors have dropped the case. And how long until he finally gets convicted of domestic violence?
The interesting thing about this is that it's actually funny because his lawyer said, "Hey, my client's been lucky with the ladies."
Oh yes, we talked about this, and he sucks in terms of the ladies. Ladies, stay away. This is a public service announcement.
But here's the thing: he's been lucky with the ladies, but at least, and obviously maybe it's different in Florida, but Tony and I were talking about the idea of a recanting witness, specifically in domestic violence cases. A recanting witness is someone who initially made a complaint, wanted to press charges, and later they change their mind, they don't want to, and they often even change their story to get the prosecutor to drop the charge. And in my personal experience, I get the wives and the girlfriends calling and saying, "Well, what if I call the DA and I tell him that I was drunk and I didn't mean that and I had a reason that I lied," and I say, don't even bother, because it doesn't really matter. So Tony, what do you think about at least in our jurisdiction, recanting? Does that make a difference?
Well, it depends on every case, but as a general rule, I don't like recanting cases. The juries don't buy it. What they do is they call the police officer, and he says she was crying and upset.
There's a video, for his body camera video, recorded this lady.
Is that right?
Yes.
Okay, and she had a
injury.
Her cheek was she had an injury, and then when they get up and lie, if they lie for the boyfriend or the husband, it just doesn't. It doesn't work. I've seen it happen before, and I sit there cringing. I would rather take it on straight on. rather than as a general rule. Every case is different.
Than someone who changes their story.
Somebody changing their story, because the prosecution will call a expert witness that will say and can testify as an expert that recantation is part of the abuse. That's what happens.
Like battered women syndrome.
Happens a lot.
Yeah.
And then, down the line, when there is a next one, because I'm pretty sure there will be a next one, will these prior cases that have been dropped be used in those cases to prosecute him?
They certainly could be in California. There's a specific evidence code section that allows prior acts of domestic violence or violence against another woman, it doesn't have to be married or even a girlfriend, come in, and it's very easy for the prosecution to get it in. The legislature has made it very easy. I don't know what the law is in Florida.
Get it in for the jury's consideration at trial.
To actually show propensity for this kind of thing. And that's devastating.
Did this change after the OJ?
Yeah, I think it did.
I think so too.
There was. It's in the last, I think, 10 years, maybe a little more, maybe 15 years. But OJ changed a lot of things.
A lot of things about domestic violence. I also think that even in terms of prosecutorial agency making a filing decision, they matter, because at least here in LA, if a prosecutor's looking at allegations by a woman that a man hit her and whatever he did, and that person has no prior history of any type of battery or assault, they look at that differently. I mean, that could make a difference in them not filing a case if there's not sufficient evidence. But if they have a whole slew like Zimmerman of getting lucky with the ladies, eventually they're not going to get lucky.
Isn't he really getting kind of unlucky with the ladies? I mean, they always call the police.
Right.
He's getting lucky with the prosecution. They drop the cases.
That's true.
He's lucky with men too, because he had a road rage case where the guy didn't want to press charges, and it was really bad. It was pretty aggravated, the circumstances.
If I were him, I would
crawl
take,
into a hole
or something like that. But I would take a cue from OJ, what happened to OJ Simpson,
where karma caught up.
You get so lucky. You should get up every day and thank God that you're still walking around, and you try out for the sainthood every day.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You watch everything you do, and especially in domestic violence situations. The truth is, guys, I don't care what they say. I don't care if they whack you. I don't care if they insult you, your mother, your father. Don't hit. Walk away, because you're never going to win. You're always going to be in the wrong.
Good advice.
Yep.
Okay.
And that's for free, too. That's for free.
Usually charge a lot for that advice.
Absolutely. Right.
Thank you so much for giving it to us for free today.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, so we want to close out today with a special segment because it is Black History Month. So today we've got some trivia for you, some historical events that occurred on this day in February 4th. So did you know that on this day in 1952 we had our first Black executive of a major TV station, and that was Jackie Robinson.
Jackie Robinson, the baseball player?
Yep, same guy.
Really?
Yep.
Wow, that's amazing. Wow.
And then on this day in 1971, baseball announces a special Hall of Fame wing for blacks. Pretty cool. And then, to bring it back to the law, the first black man licensed to practice law in the United States was Macon Bowling Allen, who passed the bar exam in Maine in 1844.
Wow.
And he was also the first to hold a judicial post by becoming a Massachusetts Justice of the Peace in 1848. So can you imagine that? He's a judge in the North and there's slavery in the South.
And this is
yeah.
before the
Crazy.
Civil War.
Yep.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Fascinating.
And then, of course, we can't leave out the first female African-American lawyer who was equally awesome. Charlotte E. Ray was not only the first black female lawyer, she was also the first woman, period, to practice in Washington, D.C. And she graduated from Howard Law School in 1872. How's that for you?
It's pretty amazing.
It's amazing.
All right, Sarah.
All right.
all
Well,
good.
this brings us to the end of the segment today. Thank you so much for tuning in. Tony, thank you again for joining us on the show. We learned a lot, as always. And please keep the dialogue going during the week. Find us on iTunes and YouTube and click like and post your comments and your feedback. You can also tweet us. You can tweet me at Azari Law.
At Chelsea Galicia.
And Tony can be emailed directly, marksbrooklier@yahoo.com. Thank you so much, and we'll see you next week right here on Justice is Served.
From producers Maria Menounos, Dario Kristen, Tiana Hobson, Kevin Undergaro, and the entire BHL crew, we would like to thank you for supporting Black Hollywood Live, the first online broadcast network dedicated to African American entertainment. For questions and comments, contact us at info@blackhollywoodlive.com. Like us on Facebook, tweet us, or Instagram us at BHL Online. And I'm your BHL announcer, Scipio. Instagram me at Planet Scipio. Thank you for tuning in. The views expressed here are those of the host only and do not necessarily reflect the views of BHL or its owners or principals.